If you wanted to write a book so large it required two people just to lift it, you'd probably need a team of scribes, a lifetime of funding, and maybe a literal signature from the devil himself. This isn't just a hypothetical thought experiment. This is the physical reality of the Codex Gigas, a massive, terrifying medieval manuscript that has haunted humanity for nearly 8 centuries. Our story begins in the dark, damp halls of Podlasici Monastery in Bohemia, where a Benedictine monk has committed an offense so unspeakable that his brothers have sentenced him to a fate worse than death. He is to be walled up alive, left to starve in pitch-black silence inside a stone tomb. Therefore, in a desperate bid to avoid the slow, suffocating end, the condemned monk strikes an impossible bargain with his executioners. He promises that if they spare his life, he will write the grandest book in human history in a single night, a book that will contain all human knowledge and bring eternal glory to the monastery. But as the midnight oil burns low, his fingers cramp, and the horrifying reality of his impossible task sets in. Realizing he cannot possibly finish before sunrise, he drops his quill and whispers a desperate prayer, not to God, but to the Prince of Darkness. So when morning arrives, the monks find their prisoner alive and well, holding a 165-pound leather-bound volume that shouldn't physically exist. The legend says the devil gladly accepted the monk's soul in exchange for writing the massive book in a flash of sulfur and brimstone. This is a colorful, spooky campfire story designed to keep novices in line, but it raises a deeply unsettling question. If this is just a myth, why does this Holy Bible contain a giant, jarring, full-page portrait of Satan himself?
Turn to page 290 of the Codex Gigas, and you are greeted by a green-faced clawed beast crouching between two towers. It is an incredibly rare, shocking illustration for a medieval Bible, radiating an undeniable chilling presence. But even more disturbing is the physical anomaly surrounding this infamous image. The pages immediately flanking the portrait are mysteriously darkened and blackened, as if literally scorched by the residual heat of demonic energy. For centuries, believers insisted this was physical proof of the devil's touch, warning that merely touching the singed parchment would curse a man's soul. But modern forensic science eventually stepped in to analyze the ancient parchment. Using advanced multispectral imaging and chemical analysis, researchers scrutinized the composition of the blackened pages. And what they found wasn't soot, sulfur, or any residue from a hellish flame. Instead, the scientific analysis revealed a completely mundane, though remarkably historic, explanation for the dark stains. The blackened parchment was a clue pointing directly to a very human and incredibly tedious reality. But this physical discovery immediately opened a far more puzzling question about the physical creation of the book itself. If the devil didn't write it, who possessed the terrifying stamina to build this monster?
To find out, forensic handwriting experts analyzed every single line of the massive 310-page manuscript, and what they found changed everything. To their utter astonishment, the analysis revealed that the entire book was written by one single scribe, because the ink consistency throughout the giant tome shows it was mixed using the exact same recipe by the self-same hand. There are no changes in style, spelling quirks, or minor errors that would indicate a team of helpers. Therefore, the penmanship never wavers, showing a terrifyingly consistent level of control over what must have been a monumental 25 to 30-year labor of absolute grueling isolation. This insane dedication also explains the Scorched Pages, which were actually just sun-damaged from centuries of people leaving the book open to gawk at the scary devil picture. But solving one myth only exposes a massive practical nightmare. To produce enough parchment, someone had to slaughter and skin over 160 donkeys, which is quite a lot of donkeys even by medieval standards. Therefore, we have a massive financial paradox. How did a single solitary monk afford a small empire's worth of animal hides and rare imported pigments, especially when his own monastery was famously, desperately bankrupt?
Historians investigating the Podlasici Monastery discovered it was a tiny, impoverished ruin, so they could barely afford to feed themselves, let alone fund the largest manuscript on Earth. Yet, the book exists, meaning someone with immense wealth and power must have funded this decades-long obsession. But medieval Bibles were vanity projects, so benefactors always stamped their coats of arms and names on the front page. Strangely, the Codex Gigas contains absolutely no royal seals, meaning the identity of this mysterious patron remained a total blank space. Why would a medieval billionaire buy a small kingdom's worth of parchment and demand to remain completely anonymous? This silence was baffling, until historians stopped looking at the grand illustrations and began squinting at the tiny, easily missed obituary list on page 2. And hidden among the names of long-dead monks, they found a simple entry that would blow this centuries-old legend wide open.
The obituary listed a man named Herman, but it was his highly unusual Latin title that held the key to the entire mystery. The entry read Herman Inclusus, a name that immediately sent shockwaves through the historical community. Because in medieval Latin, the word inclusus is incredibly tricky, possessing a double meaning that changes everything. It can mean the confined, someone walled in as a horrific punishment. But inclusus also translates to the recluse, a voluntary anchorite who chose to lock themselves in a tiny stone cell for life. Therefore, the terrifying legend of the doomed monk walled in alive wasn't a supernatural myth. It was a literal, linguistic mistranslation of a devout man's ultimate spiritual vow. Herman Inclusus wasn't running from a death sentence. Instead, he was running from the world, choosing a living tomb as a form of extreme, quiet devotion. For nearly 3 decades, Herman Inclusus sat in a tiny stone room, pouring his entire soul into a single massive book to prove his devotion. He chose the wall to escape the world. But if Herman Inclusus was just a quiet, devout hermit working in absolute peace, how did his holy manuscript become a cursed magnet for royal madness? The book sat quietly in the monastery for centuries, acquiring a dark reputation as a tool of the occult. It was rumored that anyone who owned it would eventually lose their mind.
Enter Emperor Rudolf II in the late 16th century, a man already suffering from severe inherited mental instability. Rudolf was obsessed with the occult, alchemy, and the forbidden arts. When Emperor Rudolf II heard rumors of a giant ancient Bible written by the hand of Satan, he knew he had to have it at any cost. He used intense imperial pressure to coerce the monks into lending him the Codex Gigas, promising to return it shortly. But once the book arrived at his castle in Prague, Emperor Rudolf II went completely cold, refusing to let anyone else near the giant volume. As his paranoia spiraled, Emperor Rudolf II locked himself away with the book, obsessively searching its pages for hidden codes. Therefore, Emperor Rudolf II's descent into madness cemented the book's cursed reputation, turning it into the ultimate forbidden prize of war.
This reputation made it a prime target in 1648 during the brutal final days of the 30 Years' War. While the Swedish army sacked the city of Prague, their commanders had highly specific, secret orders from Queen Christina. They were instructed to ignore the standard gold and silver and instead secure one specific treasure, the legendary Codex Gigas. The Swedes successfully seized the 1,665-pound manuscript, shipping it across the Baltic Sea as the ultimate war booty for Queen Christina. But the supposed curse of the giant book seemed to follow it to Sweden, culminating in a catastrophic night of fire.
In 1697, a sudden, devastating fire broke out inside the royal castle in Stockholm, quickly engulfing the royal library. The flames spread rapidly, and a terrified royal librarian found himself trapped with the massive 165-pound Bible. Realizing he couldn't carry it down the burning staircase, he did the only thing he could. He threw the giant book out of a high window. The Codex Gigas landed in the dirt below, its heavy wooden cover shattered and several priceless pages torn away forever. Those missing pages are still rumored to contain secret, dark rituals, but the truth is far more human. The legend claims the devil wrote this book in a single night to save a terrified monk from a stone wall. The reality is that a man named Herman Inclusus willingly walled himself inside a stone room for 25 years. The devil didn't write the Codex Gigas to trap a soul. A human being wrote it to set his own soul free. And this is just one story among countless mysteries history left behind. Subscribe and let's keep uncovering them together. And if this one got you thinking, a like or a share helps more curious minds find it.